Blues and Bullets. Is it worth a buy? Let's read the words that explain the game. Blues and Bullets is a dark and violent crime thriller set in an alternative Eliot Ness and Al Capone story. Blues and Bullets blends a stunning script with detective work to deliver an amazing interactive experience. So what is Blues and Bullets? Well, it's a Telltale type game. It's not by Telltale, but it is very similar to a Telltale game. If you don't know what a Telltale game is, they're the kind of interactive storybooks. They did The Walking Dead, they've done Back to the Future, there's Jurassic Park, the latest one is Game of Thrones. I've played Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, and I've played Back to the Future one. I liked all of them except the Back to the Future one. I really enjoyed The Walking Dead. I've done a complete playthrough of every single episode on Max Corner. It's the only game that actually made me cry. So if you want to hear me cry like a pussy, I'm not telling you which episode it's in though, because I'm embarrassed. Shit. But I didn't cry like a pussy anyway. I muted my mic so you couldn't hear me cry, but you could tell that I'd cried. Blues and Bullets. It's set in an alternative Capone-Ness 1920s America, and I'm not going to spoil the story, but basically I have to tell you that you are a detective. You're working actually for Al Capone in this game. There's a lot of flashbacks to and froing from the past to the present as he sets up his character, and then you're hunting down this pretty much monster. Really, it's not human. I don't think it's evil, horrible, and it's not nice, guys. And I have to say, this game is brutally disturbing. It is very disturbing. It is not for the squeamish, and certainly not for kids. It's quite dark, very dark, and I don't just mean in the colour correction of it. They've colour corrected the game so that only red really shows. I mean, there's black and white obviously and red, and that's it. Another thing I didn't like about this game was I couldn't really get into the characters. There was no real show stealers of characters there that I got into. See, The Walking Dead, I kind of really got into it. I mean, I could dig the characters. I loved Kenny in The Walking Dead and Lee. You know, they were just great. Clementine as well, great characters. I mean, in Game of Thrones, Ramsay, he's brilliant. You know, and you kind of play the game for these characters because they're so well done in the game. And you know, when I'm playing a Walking Dead episode, when the episode ends, I'm like, is it over already? That was really good. When this episode ended for Blues and Bullets, I was like, thank for that. You know, it was like I didn't enjoy myself. It's clunky for a start. It runs like shit. I mean, I don't know what my frames per second were because I didn't have a frame rate counter going on this because it didn't actually work with shadow play, so I was using OBS to record it, so I couldn't see what the FPS was, but it looked as if it was dropping under 30, which is a bit shit for a game like this when there's hardly any action in the game. It's mainly just a book, it's a story, but I didn't enjoy the story, and I think that's the big problem with it. The story for me is a bit shit. There was some tense moments, definitely, and some quite scary moments, I guess. And there was some action, and I like the action in this. There's a few gunfights that you have, and what you do with that. I was using a controller because I found the mouse a bit clunky. You can play with the mouse, but I prefer a controller with this. And the action is kind of, you're behind a barricade, your left trigger pops you out from the barricade, your right trigger fires your gun, and then you can pop back behind the barricade. Pressing A will switch you to a different barricade. I mean, it's hardly an FPS game, you know, but it is better than the kind of action that you've seen in the Telltale games. It's done better, in my opinion, but the rest of it isn't done as good. And as the core of this game is the story and the characters, if they're not good enough, then the game's going to fall flat. Now, this hasn't fallen flat. It's got very positive reviews and hardly any negative ones, but to me, I just couldn't get into the characters. I just couldn't get into the story enough to make it really be meaningful for me, and I didn't really like it, unfortunately. Now, I'm not saying that it's a bad game, because it just isn't a bad game. It's highly polished, and I can understand people loving this game. I think it was more the era doesn't interest me that much. I mean, I loved the Untouchables film. I loved Mafia the game. I mean, that was... I got into that, you see. I got into Mafia the game because it had great characters in it. But this is just the voiceovers, the characters, the whole... I couldn't get away with it. It is only $3.99. It's not an expensive game, but that's only for this episode. There's 5 episodes. Episode 2 isn't out yet, but you can buy every one of the episodes for $14.99, and when they come out, obviously you just download it and get playing it. I can understand people liking it and wanting to play it. For me, I just couldn't get into it. It wasn't for me. It's one of them games that just wasn't for me. So what I will say to you, if you're a fan of Telltale type games and you don't mind a bit of dodgy frame rating and a bit of clunkiness on the controls, you're probably going to like this. There's nothing really innovative about it. It does kind of advertise this detective thing where you've got this board, you know, like the old court boards the old detectives would put up, and they'd pin the photographs up, draw the lines and try and work out the case. There's one of them in it, but it's bullshit, because you just press the buttons and it does the story for you. You don't have to have any brain or any, you don't do any detecting really. It's on rails, it does it all for you kind of thing. So there you go, that's Blues and Bullets. I'm giving it a thumb down because I just didn't. I didn't. Alright, I just didn't. I didn't do it. Wasn't me. But if you like this kind of thing with that kind of setting, back you repeat yourself, just end the fucking video, alright? Not worth a buy. It is, if you like it. Mac! But it is. Do you understand? Do you fucking know what I'm saying to you? If you're into this story, right? And you're into this type of game, it's worth a buy. But I'm not. So it's not. End. Yes, we'll end it there. Don't press the bell anymore. You don't fucking need the bell